So thank you so much for coming today to share your book writing experience with me.
It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's like we've worked so closely together on your book. It's just been such an amazing journey. I've loved every minute of it. So I'm really excited to unpack what it was like from the author's perspective.
Exciting.
Yeah, yeah. So I know one of the things that amuses me about you, Nikki, is how resistant you were.
Me?
Totally. You were like, I am not writing a book. I am not writing a book. And I know for 2 years because our coach has been trying to get you to write a book for 2 years, and you were like, I'm not writing a book. Stop talking to me about books.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It probably goes back further than that because I had a coach before this coach who was the same, was like, Nikki, you've got a great book in you. Let me help you get it out. And was a shareholder in a very successful business in writing books and was like, I can even give you the blueprint of how to do it. And it was a hard no with everyone every time. And it's laughable now. And with both people that we're referring to, there's a real celebration of moving forward through that, but also how stubborn I was during the process that, and I think for me the standard is so high when I do work that I didn't want to do it until I felt ready and that I had a quality message to share.
mm,
And I do hold a belief that is still there and is working through. And it is a limiting belief that I'm not a great writer. And I've had that since teenage. I know where it comes from. So the thought of someone asking me to then not only go and write an article, but to write a whole book that would be out in the world was like preposterous to think that I would do that. So that was where you were like when you first proposed it to me, that's what you were up against.
I remember that day we were sitting together in your sitting room. Actually, we were doing a bit of brainstorming together, and
Yeah.
I could feel the pushback, and I was like, okay, what do I
Uh-huh.
do with this? Do I quietly retreat? And I think I did that day, but it was like I was so convinced that you had to write a book. It kept escaping out of my mouth when we were talking to each other. It's like, but, and eventually you started to come around.
Yeah, I think there was I think what you helped me do, Mary, was to you broke it down into chunks for me, as well as having the fabulous system that supports you through the process. You helped me, you kind of spoon-fed it to me of what about if this bit became a chapter in the book, or what if this book supported people in this way that you are not currently reaching and maybe not able to reach you for whatever reason that is. So that definitely piqued my curiosity. And then you took it a step further and were like, what if you just wrote one tiny piece of it and see how it felt? So then that was like, oh, I could do that bit. And then when I read that bit back, I was like, oof, that was my response. And it's still my response when I read that same piece of the book. And I must have read it now about what, 15,000 times. And it still makes me go, oof, which when I'm reading or listening to someone else and if it has that impact, that's where I share it or save it and come back to it. And to see that my work had that impact, my writing had that impact was one big part of me then getting over this stubbornness of absolutely not to maybe I could do this. And the other piece I would say is that my clients were asking for it. And there was a particular workshop at the same time that you were pecking at me to maybe consider this. I delivered this team session in one with one of my elite clients, and they said to me at the end, and I told them this story when I went back a few months ago. They said, Nikki, we've loved today. How do we continue to go further on this in between? Do you have any books that you could recommend, or do you have a book? And I said, oh, I've got loads of books I could recommend. And then as I was going home, I was like, hold on a minute. What they were actually asking is, we want to continue the work with you because you've transformed us so much today, but we were thirsty for more. And I think between you being there and showing me what was possible and that it isn't as complicated as my brain was making it, and then my client saying we want and need more, it was like the timing aligned.
Yeah, yeah. I could see that. I could see that the whole way along. I was like, just another little token.
They get
And
help
it
that
was
we voice
like,
note every day, and you're like, "Ooh, I can see there's another way in there and
I
there."
know. And I was like, oh, this needs to be a book. This needs to be a book. But the funny part was, I think we started working together on it around the end of March,
Yeah,
heading
it was
into the
after.
first week of April.
Yeah, yeah,
Now
yeah,
we're mid-August and you've uploaded it to Amazon. It's like
yeah.
April, May, June, July. It was finished the end of July. So from no way to ready to publish in 4 months. I'm like,
Yeah.
yes.
There comes my high achiever in there right there.
Yeah, yeah. And something that I know to be true about you is your standard is so high. And I
Mm,
think this was part of your resistance. It was like, my standard is so high. If it doesn't reach this impossible bar, I don't want to do it.
hmm.
So,
Yeah.
what was your experience of that as you were going along? And for somebody who doesn't identify as being a writer,
Mm. Hmm.
what was your experience of that? And when? Because I could see the moment when that flicked for you. It was like suddenly it was going from, okay, well, let me just, I will, I'll put this into a little draft for you. And you were like, give me that. And at one point you were like, you were so ready to run with it then.
Yeah, totally. I feel that well, there's a few things, Mary. And I'm pausing because I'm reflecting because there's so many things going through my mind that I want to share about this. Can you ask me the question again so that I can make sure I'm answering rather than running ahead of where other things that I'd love to share today?
Can you remember at what point did you go from feeling the resistance to wanting to run with it because you've got a really high
Oh yeah,
standard?
the stanza piece,
Yeah.
yes. That was the bit I'd lost from the beginning of the question. Yeah, I think what helped me with the stanza piece, because I am really trying to play with this bar of excellence as well. However, for the book, the standard has to be at the highest. But you really supported that and the implicit trust that I have in you, because there is moments when you're writing a book I've enjoyed it a lot, being able to go into self and really pull out your own genius and really sit with it and understand, well, how do you take somebody from here to here and why do you do it that way? It's almost like where you write a CV and you have to pause and really reflect on your career experiences. It's like that times 100.
Mm,
But you hold a similar standard to I do. So in those moments where I could feel that I needed an ally to say, is the standard good enough? You were there for me, knowing what I want and knowing the standard that you uphold. There's definitely moments in my journey where you get to a point where I just want this bit to be done. So you might
mm,
be tempted in that exact moment to think, it's okay, it's good enough. Whereas you would then say, Nikki, imagine it's a month's time and you have this book in your hand. Would you still be happy? And it got me to say, no, okay, let me take a breath and I'll come back to it tomorrow. So
mm,
I think the you having you there along the way to know the standard that I expect for myself and command for myself and that you command to be part of Ink and Press, Ink and Impact is
mm,
what kept it and kept me going all along, all the way through it.
yeah. Yeah. And because I remember at the start you put a lot of time into telling me how high your standards are. And I was like, you don't have to worry about that because you've got to match my standards. And at some point, Nikki stopped saying that. It was like, and I was like, no, it's not done. It's just one more take,
I remember
one more
during the
go.
beginning when you said to me, there'll probably be about 5 drafts of the book, and that felt like a what? No, internally, and I probably did say it to you, I'm not going to need 5 drafts. And in some chapters, there's 13 drafts of the chapter. So that just goes to play to the standards. And it doesn't mean that every chapter was rewritten, but it was elevated in every single version of it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah. And because we're always protecting the last version,
yeah,
like a new version might just have 3 words or something changed.
absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
I think by normal standards, because I know somebody else in our world, in our vicinity, said, "You're going to have 17 drafts of the book." And I was like, yeah, she needs to come over here and do it our way because we're not doing 17 drafts. But like the difference between, like some chapters maybe only had 2 drafts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then there was ones maybe where it was like you wanted to change a story
Mm,
or maybe the ordering needed to be changed or whatever. And it's really getting the polish on it at that stage. So you can have
100%.
like 5 versions of it just literally as you're polishing it. But because you're
Yeah.
not destroying any previous versions, you're creating a new version for that.
Yeah, definitely. Or
Mm.
you add something to it because you remember something else because you've had space for your creative part of your mind to be open and it recalls extra
Mm.
things where you've got space. You might be on a walk or in the shower and you're like, oh, that needs to go into that chapter, which just elevated it to another level as well.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny actually because I always think that when you sit down to do your book first, you have to make a conscious decision to sit down and open your laptop and get focused. And then at some point in the journey of the book starts following you around. It'll follow you
Mm,
into the shower. It'll follow you to the dinner table. It'll follow you out on your walk with the dog. And it's like, "Oh, I have to put this in. I have to put this in." And it's
mm,
funny. It's like, it's around chapter 3 or 4. It's like, suddenly that will kick in and I'm like, I don't need to worry about this girl now. She's going to clear some space. I don't
mm.
have to keep hounding her every day or every Monday morning. At some point, the whole momentum of the book will take over.
Yeah, totally. Totally. And for me, space was, I think what was important for me, because everybody goes on their own journey of how they write, and some people do it longer. For me, the longer I spent away from it, the more I felt like I was going back to the beginning to reconnect to it.
Mm,
So, but I also couldn't do it where there was one person that I'd spoke to who also wrote a book with you, and they'd said, "Oh, I do an hour a day and or half an hour a day, and I'm commit that's my ritual that I do." That didn't work for me because I had something that I did for the book every day, but I needed space and I needed peaceful and undisturbed space. So for me, writing it was on the weekends. It
mm,
was Saturday and Sunday intensely, and then there might be little edits or actions that I do during the week, but then the week became a protection for my day to day being really present and in service to the clients
mm,
that I work for. So that for me was my process, and staying in it allowed me to stay connected to it, which allowed me to then do it in we didn't really say we have to do it in this amount of time, but me being able to allocate that dedicated space and staying committed to it with some personal sacrifices to that, right? But it was like
mm.
it helped me sustain the standard and the connection to the book to continue the momentum.
Yeah. And it is a season. So, I mean, that season you can make it a lot of years, as we know.
Yeah.
We've
Yeah,
heard of
yeah.
people taking like a lot of years to write a book, or you can condense it. It's like,
Mm,
and I think a big part of that as well is like, what do you want this book to do in the world? And there's something around that. It's having that vision around this is what I want it to do for the reader, for my business. Okay, now
mm,
I can clear some space for that. I think there's a very big difference between a book that's highly intentional in that way and a book that's nice to have. Oh, I'll
mm,
write this because, people would be interested in my story or whatever. That's not a book that you're going to clear space for.
mm.
I think if it's going to be an asset for your business, an authority building asset, now this is worth clearing space for. And you did that beautifully.
Yeah, thank you. The book felt like, well, the whole purpose of the book is to be impact for good. It was very intentional from the beginning that this book is desired to reach people that are the message works for and the work supports. And on top of that, the work, any profit from the book is going to charity. So this book was never about me, although, it's been an amazing process. And I agree with you that when your purpose is bigger than yourself, you do absolutely prioritize and make space for it.
Mm.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And there was something about your book as well. It was highly intentional for in how you wrote it for the people that you specifically want to work with.
Yeah.
But there is another impact as well where that book is I see this book is going to change people's lives. And it's not necessarily the people you're going to work with, but there is another, like a secondary impact where I want all of my kids and their friends to read this
Mm.
book. You can hand it to the parent of a 9-year-old, and I know we spoke about this, like parents of younger kids, where they can read the book to the kids and they can have conversations about it. And I think the bigger impact of that is just going to be huge.
Mm. Yeah,
So I love
agreed.
that.
Agreed. And I think the using your language, the world on the other side of this is still working itself out. And I kind of really like that as well. Like I'm really clear on, there is this book doesn't just serve this person in this career. It serves people that want to become so rooted in who they are,
Mm,
and then go on to do big things in the world. And that creates a ripple of us all leaving the world better than we found it. That is really important to me. And I agree, I've got one friend who is already like, when can I buy it? When can I buy it? Because her daughter is an athlete, which is half of who I work with is elite athletes. And obviously I work in the business space as well. But that was the exact conversation where that was born from of, we'll read a chapter of the book to her of an evening. And then when you've got questions, you can ping them over to me and we can work through it together. Because at the moment, I don't work with children, but I agree with you. There's definitely a space for this. And I would love it to impact children because we are all born unshakable. And then along the way, we lose it. And imagine a world where we didn't have to lose it, or we were able to see that it could happen, but actually I'm choosing this path because this is the path that I'm worthy of, and we're all worthy of that. So I feel really energized by that. It definitely felt like a book that had to be born in the world then, rather than a nice to do, as you referenced there.
yeah, I totally agree. What if we don't ever have to relearn that as adults,
I know.
what it is to be unshakable? It's like,
I know.
that is mind blowing.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean that life doesn't happen. Life is happening to me, or for me, correction, for me today. But the way that I'm dealing with it is much different now that I've done all of this work on myself as well as I do for others as well. It's like I can be with anything that life has to offer me, no matter how big or how small. And that is beautiful.
Mm,
Nothing steals my peace. And that is the biggest freedom that I think any of us have or should or deserve to have access to. You hear me say
mm,
this all the time, nothing gets to steal my peace. And if it does, then I'm curious because that's another up level for me of becoming even more unshakable.
mm. And what I love is you're not preaching this, you are living this yourself.
Yes. Yeah.
And there's pieces
Yeah.
that are in your book, and you're like, you message me and you go, have you got time to sit in the mud with me? And there's something that you talk about in your book. So you're living this yourself.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
It's
Totally.
not like, you're some person on a balcony preaching to the crowd. It's like you're in the crowd. You're in the crowd, you're living this all the time yourself. And I love that.
I think that's so important though. I was saying to a friend this morning, actually, there's so much content out there now. What I'm really interested in and what I love to consume content wise in whatever form it comes is people with lived experience and depth of wisdom and experience. And that is what this book is my experience for myself, but also doing this work for over 25 years and talking through client stories that are really interesting as well. So thank you for saying that.
Yeah. And on that note, there was a moment after we had put together the first draft, and I was reading it, and I was like, oh, every time you give me something to do, you're losing me, or I'm stepping out of the magic. And then there was this whole, I was like, okay, what about if there was no exercises and we turned this into a transmission? And you were like, yes, let's do that. And it completely turned the book.
Yeah.
So it was like, then the whole way through the book, it was like you had created this experience, this journey you wanted to bring the reader on. And everything was like, what are the insights that people are getting along the way? So I don't think there's one exercise in the book, but it's all of these little mindset shifts. And at the back of this, at the start of this, you were going, oof, oof. You were always looking for those oof moments.
Totally.
But those oof moments are dripped through your whole book.
Yeah, 100% they are. And that was when we knew the chapter was complete, right? Was when that was the reaction that I was having. And
Mm,
also for me, the other test of that was that I could share the chapter because I've had a couple of clients read the book and real truth telling clients, which was strategically chosen. But every chapter had to stand to that standard that I could be like, oof.
mm,
Yes. And it's interesting because when I first started on this, I was like, I want it to feel like you're taking the reader on a journey. So I'm literally giving them the work as if I'm with them in the room. And that the only way I could see it at the beginning was that I did give them the exercise to do at the end of each chapter. And then you definitely put that to me in terms of what if you could do that without the exercises in it? So there's definitely times within the book that I'm still sharing a client's journey through an exercise, but without saying to the reader, right, stop, go and grab a pen and paper, which is what originally it was beginning, or the initial draft, as you say, was scribing out to be. And the book definitely transformed in moving it to this way rather than okay, stop, go again, stop, go again. And there's definitely a space for that type of book, but my
mm.
book wasn't meant to be in that way.
Exactly. And there's so much information, there's so much knowledge, there's so much giving people another thing to do. It's like at no point when I was reading, and I've read your book several times, I could
I know you did.
several times, but there was no point where I had to step out and go and do something. Because I feel like if you step out, if you get the reader to step out and go and do something, number one, you're giving them homework, you're giving them another thing to do when they probably don't need another thing to do, and they might not come back, or maybe they'll come back in a year's time. Whereas the way your book is now, it's like I can see people sitting reading it and going, and just looking into space for a few minutes. It's like once they've seen something that they
Yeah.
can't unsee, now they're getting all these little mindset shifts. And oh, what else has Nikki got for me?
Yeah. And it's interesting because I was thinking about some of my favorite books do have exercises in them. That I go back or I've gifted, but I've never done any of the exercises. Even if I'm listening to it on audio, I have the thought of, oh, I'll keep going and I'll come back to that. But I never go back to it. I go back to the book or I keep going with the book, but I don't ever complete the exercises. So there's definitely a space for it. And everybody has a different journey when reading a book, don't they? Whereas I always like to think I do and put out in the world the way that it motivates me. And if I'm not somebody that does the exercises, then I should also write the book in that sense as well, right? So yeah, I'm so grateful that you put that in front of me.
Yeah, it just made it a different experience. It made
Yeah,
it,
totally.
it actually made it a much harder book to write
You tell
because
me that now.
there's something easier about like when you give somebody exercises and you give them things to do, you can hide behind that.
Right.
Because it's like, here's something that I know how to do, go and do it on this. Whereas when you remove all of that, there's nowhere left for you to hide.
Mm,
Because now it's like everything that you're creating the experience within every chapter. It's like, what's the story I'm telling here? What is it I want them to get from that? And you're curating that journey the whole way. That's a much harder ask for
mm.
somebody who's not a writer.
Well, the limiting belief that they're not a writer, because I'm now a published author.
Now you're a published author.
Yeah, soon
Yes.
to be out in a few weeks' time, 17th of September.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Nikki, it's going to be amazing. I know it's going to be amazing. It's like I've had that vision with you the whole way along this journey, and it's like, no, 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 we're not there yet. In a year's time, you'll have forgotten all of this work that you put in to make it here rather
Mm-hmm.
than here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going
Yeah.
to be amazing. It's going to be
No, and
amazing.
it is amazing, I feel so proud. I think I said that to you when Pluto sent me the finished design of it, and seeing it in a book form rather than a Word document was like another level of transformation. And I don't know if you remember, I voice noted you that morning of what I was experiencing emotionally, the pride and the excitement, to see it move from a Word document to an actual book format. And I want to say thank you to you because you were the one who made this possible. And between you being in it the whole way through it with me in this intense way, and the system on the back end, on a whole, it's made the experience so enjoyable. I've up leveled myself during this process, and I'm so excited about this book about unshakable self-belief being out in the world in 3.5 weeks' time.
Woohoo!
I know.
Yes, there's going to be bubbles that day.
Yes, there will be.
Before you go, Nikki, one thing that you would say to anybody who is on the fence about writing their book or thinking they need more knowledge or more experience or more whatever, what would you say to somebody who's putting it off?
I would say read your tiny, tiny, tiny book, and see what happens after you read that, which they can get from a gift from Mary.com. Is that right?
That's right, yeah.
And then I would say have a conversation with you without feeling any pressure or yeah, any pressure or attachment to having to. Although I'm pretty convinced even after they read that short book that they'll see it's really possible.
Mm, yeah. And it's funny actually because I still sit down like that teeny weeny book that you're talking about. I did that about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. I built this system for writing books. I still sat down and went, "Oh God, I don't know if I can do this." So it is a thing at the start of every book. It's like, "Oh, why am I even doing this to myself? I could be out socializing with my friends instead."
Hmm.
So yeah, I don't think that ever goes away.
Good to know.
Good to know for somebody who has a series of books in
I
her.
know. Yeah, I'm like, give me a minute, Mary, before you ask me to do the next one. There will be a next one.
I think there will, yeah. Nikki, thank you so much. I really
No, thank
appreciate
you for
you
having
sharing
me.
your experience with us.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.